that shows a tremendous amount of care, concern, and desire to have your voices heard. So in order to respect the 2 hours that we have here today, and we do have a hard stop for District 11 at 12 o'clock, we must leave at 12. So we'll talk about if your voice or your idea didn't get shared or heard in this public setting, how you can continue to voice those with our city staff and with myself. So, yeah, thank you for being here on such a important. Oh, I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm going to introduce myself. Excuse me. My name is Nancy Hingham, and by the way, I wrote these notes out because I have some really important things to say, and I didn't want to forget anything. So that's why I'm reading, and thank you for indulging my reading here. I'm the council member who represents District 5. I believe Council Member Donaldson will also be joining us, perhaps late. He is the district representative for District 1, and I believe he will be coming in and coming up. And we also have any other elected officials here. I think Ken Bremer was potentially coming in to see her. So in addition to representing, and I know I'm not going to get all the neighborhoods, but I'm going to ask you to raise your hand of neighborhoods that are represented in District 5. Kitty Hawk, Bonneville, raise your hand. Roswell.
Turn it up, please.
Patty Jewett. Okay. Mid-Shooks Run. No one? A few. Okay. Divine Redeemer. Nob Hill. Bill North End. Okay. And I know I talked to someone earlier. What was it again? Belleville. Belleville. Okay. Thank you. Belleville. Shoemakers? Shoemakers is okay, well, I'm learning something here today. I need to know where that is on the map. District 5 extends all the way from I-25 on the west to Powers on the east. So I do know we also have folks here from Rustic Hills. Yep. Village 7, anyone from Village 7 is a part of District 5?
You have another whole auditorium out here.
I know.
We cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Me
we have way more people than we can possibly accommodate in this
You're
space.
affecting a lot of people.
Okay, I'm going to ask for you all to please be respectful. So the people who are here, this is what we have. And if we need to do another meeting, we'll do another meeting. It is being recorded. It is being streamed live. And if you need that information on how to stream that live or get to the recording, you can reach out to Max up here. coloradosprings.gov/connectcos, and it will be made available. And I think it's a fabulous problem to have. And I'm sorry that we do not have a bigger venue for us. But back to the neighborhoods, and Palmer Park, anyone from Palmer Park? Okay. Are there other neighborhoods here that are represented that I have not mentioned? Bridlewood? Thank you. Okay. I did say Bonneville. Yes, I did. And so, yes, sir. Wasson. Thank you. Wasson is very much directly right nearby. So there are many neighborhoods and districts. Yeah, go ahead. Highland Hills by the Country Club Golf Course. Very good. District 5 is very large. I have lived for 31 years myself on the border of the Old North End and Patty Jewett for 31 of my 32 years of residence here, about 1 mile south of where we are right now. And I have met many of you before. I'm happy to see your faces and happy to see more that I have not met. This meeting this morning is broadly about Connect COS, which is the city's 20-year transportation master plan draft, and east-west mobility issues. But specifically, this meeting this morning is very targeted. It is about item number 105 of 160 items in Connect COS as a study or a project. In the Connect COS master plan, this project 105 you all would know as the Constitution extension.
Boo!
So why this meeting? Why so many people? I asked Public Works to have this meeting because there's been such a significant amount of interest in this issue, as you can see, and you know full well in your hearts and your energy. It goes back for some 20 years. City Council keeps track of the issues for which we receive communications. In 2022, the only issue that City Council was contacted on more than this one, more than Constitution, was the replacement of Richard Scorman's seat in District 3. As many of you know, this was originally proposed to be a part of PPRTA 3 just this last summer, and are really wondering how the heck did it get back on. It was striking, to say the least. So, as was true for PPRTA, Connect COS will be voted on as an ordinance, and that's the entire 160 studies and projects and the long-range master plan. This is simply one of them. Public Works will be sharing more about the remaining process at the very end of our meeting today, so you can learn how to stay engaged if you don't already know. Since I was elected, I have been working to bring together our Public Works and other department staff with some of the very, very well-organized neighborhood organizations to build communication, collaboration, trust, and to come to agreement on issues before they come to City Council for a vote. These meetings have included, over the past year plus, the Historic Neighborhood Partnership. If Diane Bridges is here, would you raise your hand? She's way in the back, standing by the Kono sign. Wave your hand again, please, Diane. She and members of the Old North End and other neighborhood organizations have been meeting regularly with Public Works. And actually, one of the outcomes of those meetings was to take Project 106 off Connect COS. So it is not, Project 106 is no longer part of Connect COS. And they'll explain what that means. Let's see. So, this town hall is the next step in hearing from the public on this matter. And if you're interested in how to be engaged in a forum like this, or actually smaller meetings like the one I just referenced that are really important to your neighborhood, I invite you to check in with Kono, who is here. We have in the back, Keith, raise your hand. Is Sarah here?
No, just me.
Okay, Keith represents Kono, the Organization of Neighborhoods, and they have been working to help educate neighborhood members and neighborhood organizations about how to stay engaged and involved on all of the issues that affect your neighborhoods. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, stop by before you leave and talk with Keith. You might have to do it outside. If it's after 12, we're going to have to leave the building. So, public engagement, listening, learning, curiosity, trust, and respect are some of the core values I strive to embody in my leadership as an elected representative. We will never agree on a single solution to the many challenges we face as neighborhoods and as a city. In fact, complex challenges like the one that we're facing, this one, don't have a single perfect solution. That, my friends, is a part of the messiness and the beauty of democracy, and in particular, in local government. And local government, where you can be much more directly a part of the process, is very important. Now, I want to give you an example of the back-to-back emails I received in my inbox, actually, really way back since the summer, but more recently, just a couple of days ago, back-to-back. One email, an excerpt. Please stop the expansion of Constitution. It will be detrimental to our neighborhoods and the many families that utilize and live in and around this area. We already have a road that does what you want. It is Fillmore. Add your lanes to that. The one I read that came in immediately after, about 6 minutes later, said, I am strongly in favor of the Constitution extension. It will help with the traffic cutting through our neighborhoods. In Bonneville, LaSalle and Magellan host hundreds of cars daily cutting from T-Gap to Nevada. My guess is that most of us fall into some general grouping. Some of you might be furious. Some of you might be curious. Some of us are very skeptical, and some of us are open. For me, I'm here to listen to your questions, to your comments, to your ideas. I'm also here to listen to the Public Works Department to understand their perspective. I asked them to be here today to share with you their current thinking about why they feel this study is valuable and worthy of our consideration. I'm hoping for an honest and respectful exchange that will help to inform my vote when Connect COS comes before the City Council. From the city, I have also invited Peter Wysocki. Stand up, Peter. He's the Director of Planning. And the reason that I invited Peter to join us is because city planning belongs with transportation planning. Transportation planning is and needs to be a part of our broader city planning. Transportation might act, as you will, like the veins to the body. Cannot be ignored and should not stand alone. Each aspect is interdependent. One impacts the other. While Peter isn't presenting, he will be listening and able to address questions that might come
today. We do only have 2 hours, so I want to leave most of all that time to you all to answer questions for you and you can share your ideas, concerns, and whatnot. Before we do that though, I just want to take a moment and level set, provide a base level of understanding. And notice I said understanding, not asking for any agreement or anything like that. As Nancy mentioned, there are obviously people on both sides of the issue. We just want to take some time today to, again, get an understanding on where everybody is at. I'm going to clarify some information and then turn over to some gentlemen who are more involved in the day-to-day details that can really better answer your questions. So real quickly, obviously everybody knows east-west mobility is an issue. It's been an issue for decades. That's largely because there is not a lot of infrastructure going east to west. The roads that are there are at capacity, demand has increased, and there's little room to expand a lot of those roads that are there. We started our transportation master plan, Connect COS, 3 years or so ago, give or take. One of the recurring themes in that was from people, the east-west reliability was an issue, accidents were an issue, the congestion, and they were tired of dealing with it. So that's been a recurring theme throughout our stakeholder meetings. Again, I realize not everybody's on that same page, but there are members in the community that do feel that way. Certainly there is an option to expand Fillmore. We could look at Uinta. We could look at those things. I think it's prudent to do so. It's also prudent to look and see, is extending Constitution a feasible option as well? It may or may not be. I was talking to a gentleman before this meeting. In order to do that, one of the things we're contemplating would be that this extension would not intersect it would not intersect any north-south roadways. It would just go through those. That would obviously lessen traffic through a lot of your neighborhoods. To what degree? I don't know. But I'll tell you what, those structures and bridges would be expensive. We do a feasibility study to see if it makes sense. It may or may not make sense. The benefit in congestion may be there, it may not. We just don't know. We don't know the answers to those questions. The best option may be a do-nothing option. But I think we as a community need to come to that realization that the best option is do nothing. Let's leave it. What I don't want to do is have people 20 years from now to deal with the same thing. 20 years ago it was brought up and it was pretty much kicked down the road, and so we're dealing with it today. So I'd rather just put it to bed as a community, whether it makes sense or not. And we can, again, that'd be part of the feasibility study. Before I invite these folks up, I do want to just clear up some misinformation. I guess a gentleman came to our office a couple weeks ago wanting to go through the plans, see which houses were going to be impacted. There are no plans. We have no plans. We have a yellow line drawn on a map, I think, for folks. That'll be part of your presentation. Until we do a feasibility study, there would be no plans. Obviously, with the feasibility study, we would do some conceptual layouts to see, again, what would the impacts be. There would be no change anticipated to the Constitution section that's already there today. So east of, say, Union, there would be no change to that. I mentioned what's being contemplated as a road that does not connect to any other north-south streets in this extension. Again, I think that would remove some traffic from neighborhoods, but until we do a feasibility study, we wouldn't know how much of an impact that really is. It may be negligible. There are no plans to demolish any homes or schools. That would be looked at through a feasibility study as well. Obviously, if that was shown to be the case, that'd be a red flag as well that we would need to consider. When might a study take place? This question may be on your handout. I don't know for sure. There is no timeline. There's no funding identified. There's no timeline. This would likely be funded by the general fund, which is year to year. That would need to go through the mayor and council to do. So until there's any funding identified, there is no timeline for this study. The last thing, and I think it's a really great question, and Nancy touched on it briefly, but the really great question is, I thought we addressed this last year with PPRTA and put the issue to bed. Why are we looking at it again 6 months later? Great question. The answer is a bit circuitous. I'm going to go through it. It started really, I'll say 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm looking at Peter, because Peter and I were in the mayor's office, and Peter was talking about the need for a master plan for the city. That is Plan COS that was started 5 years ago, 6 years ago, give or take. The master plan for the city was to determine where are people living, where are they going to be working, how is the city physically going to develop over the next 2 decades. Subsequent to that, in that same meeting, I said, well, we also need to update our transportation master plan, Connect COS, but it needs to be sequential. We need to have Plan COS far enough along to where those neighborhoods are identified, the physical development of the city is known, and then we can figure out, well, how are we going to connect those folks? What are the modes that they're going to travel? How are we going to connect those folks? And so there was a sequential order with which that was done. Also in the mix was the PPRTA ballot measure, which went to the voters last November. So we knew we had to get Plan COS started before we could start Connect COS. We had to start Connect COS far enough along because Connect COS, that transportation master plan, would inform the specific projects that we put forward on the PPRTA list. So three separate items, 3 separate issues. That was very intentional in the sequential order of those. As you know, there were a lot of issues with this one. Was brought up last summer, early fall, before the PPRTA ballot measure. I was receiving questions from people saying, when is the city going to take my house? There was a lot of misinformation. I came to the realization on a Friday, you know what, it just does not make sense to leave this on the PPRTA list. There's too much misinformation out there. The last thing I wanted to do was jeopardize the passage of PPRTA. The city really relies on PPRTA a lot for maintenance of our roads and everything else. So I called the mayor on a Friday. I called city council members that represent PPRTA on a Saturday, and we all agreed that it's best just to remove it from the PPRTA list. However, that doesn't mean that the liability itself goes away. As part of transportation master planning and Connect COS, the liability is still needing to be addressed. And as I was driving here today, I was trying to think, all right, what's a good analogy to describe that? And so, look at it as though you're buying a house. And before you buy the house, you have an inspector come in, says, you know what, you need a new water heater, you need new carpet on the main level, and new windows upstairs. And you say, okay, well, go back to the seller, and the seller says, we'll do the water heater and the carpet, we're not going to address the windows. And so you agree, you buy the house. Just because you don't have the seller fix the windows, it's still a liability. You still need to address that at some point. And so, I don't know if that analogy helps or not. That's really why the issue is still here. Although it's not on the PPRTA list, it's still an issue that we need to solve as a community. And the last thing I wanted to do, before I hand it off to these gentlemen, I think Nancy mentioned Platt in your remarks. I'd really like to draw some parallels to the Platt Avenue corridor study. You may have been a part of those meetings as well. That study started a couple of years ago, give or take. That was part of the PPRTA 2 list of projects. It was a study to determine what's feasible on Platt. And so we started that study a couple years ago. We're just wrapping it up now. Through a lot of community involvement, a lot of stakeholder involvement, a lot of meetings, really the citizens helped shape what those alternatives should be, what should be looked at, and what the end result should be. And really the end result on that is going to be leaning towards the do-nothing option because of community involvement, because of participation, because of costs, all those things I mentioned earlier that need to be looked at in a feasibility study. What you're going to see on the Platte Corridor study is really leaning towards a do-nothing option. But we're arriving at as a community, and we're addressing that, and we're going to put that to bed and say, really as a community, it doesn't make sense to have these transformational changes that were brought up as alternatives. And so I wanted to draw a parallel with that, because there are a lot of parallels between that Platte Corridor study and this study today. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted and Tim. I'll certainly be here to answer any questions as well, but they can really answer more detailed questions for you.
Thank you, Travis. Can everybody hear me okay? Back then? All right, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time out to come out today. You know, it's a Saturday, and I know it takes extra effort to come out to a meeting like this, and it's very much appreciated. As a result of that, I want you to know that we're here to listen. We're here to listen. I ask that you do the same. There's one thing I want you to, because I'm about to say something very important. I heard somebody online had said that they're selling their house because of this study that they've heard. Do not do that, please. This is not anywhere near advanced a decision or anything like that to sell your house. We are nowhere near that place. Okay, so please don't do that. But please listen to us. We're going to listen to you. I'm going to briefly introduce myself. My project consultant introduce himself, and then I got some slides to go over. Again, the point is to get feedback from you so we can hear you, so I want to make sure to give you a lot of time. My name is Tim Roberts. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager with the City of Colorado Springs. I'm House and Traffic Engineering. I'm also the Project Manager for Connects US. You will hear me say project, and I'll tell you right now that I've been, besides from my colleagues, in the transportation planning world, a study is a project. Okay? It can be a master plan, like a citywide plan, it can be a corridor study or anything like that. In my transportation planning world, a project is a study. So if I mess up and say a project, it's really a study. So don't go in thinking that I'm already talking about advancing the project. I think after this, the other thing is, I've been with the city 24 years, so I was part of the original discussion, or the original adoption of the intermodal transportation plan, so I was part of the discussion 20 years ago. I was part of the East-West Mobility study also, so I'm familiar with the project. I know about the Constitution and the concerns from the neighborhoods, through the Connects US and also through, we as staff also hear complaints about Fillmore Street, congestion there. We heard it with the Connects US plan. So very familiar with a lot of issues with this area. And you enter streets, you also get complaints too. So we would like to move forward with the study to kind of see what do we do, not predetermined, but what options are out there. Have a robust public process with a good discussion and action plans to figure out what do we do? What do we actually do for this area? I'm going to get into more slides to discuss that. Again, that Ted talked now. I'm sorry he's got a hurt foot, so he's not very mobile today, but thanks for coming out.
All right, good morning. First off, I'll introduce myself, sorry about that. My name is Ted Richard. I work for a company called Olson. I've been living here only for about 20 years, so I moved in probably about the last time this was discussed. As Tim said, I am leading a consultant team that's been helping develop this Connect COS project. We've continued to engage after we produced that draft plan that got all this attention. We've continued to engage with neighborhood leadership, other stakeholders. We've made some changes already to that draft plan, which Tim will outline today. But I do want to get through this as quick as we can so that we can hear from you. One thing I'd ask is to make sure, and if you don't have it, we do have some handouts. On the one side of this is some frequently asked questions that we've been getting about this study. On the other side is a table of some guidelines that we've developed, working with some neighborhoods on what the study will and will not do. We're trying to establish those guidelines so that we're all, as Travis said, a shared understanding of what that study that's recommended will and will not do. So part of what we want to hear from you today is what other things should we consider as we move forward with that study.
Thank you, Ted. In doing a process like this and having Constitution as an option for consideration, one thing that would be important for us to look at, is it even feasible, at the high level that we are? If we could go to this rock island. That there's been concern about the city's going to take, I saw an article or letter, that the city's going to take 300 homes. That's not, any profession in my area that would recommend that is crazy. I'll just say it. That is not a viable option. Okay? So when we're doing studies like this in a major transportation plan, we're going to be looking at historical corridors like the Rock Island. The thing that is attractive to my profession is we can preserve homes. We wouldn't have to take homes because you have existing transportation right-of-way. So in a sense, there's actually an excess right-of-way for options where we could provide mitigation. Now, does that mean we're going to come in and build the road again and do all that? No. That it's an option for us to consider in this area where we've identified an issue. So that's what we're asking for in a feasibility study. I just want to make sure that don't sell your home, because I saw that. Don't do that, okay? And then take advantage of corridors like this because they exist, and it's an option for us to look at because we can do things without major harm, there's forced acquisitions, and hopefully, if this is the option, actually, no matter what option we do, we want to mitigate whatever impacts we might create. Okay, so we can go to Nancy mentioned that we've already met with some neighborhoods. And we've been listening. Actually, we got a lot of good community feedback. I'm sure a lot of you have commented on the study. And what we've done is heard you. And I'm guilty of this. Sometimes as long-range planner, we think, okay, well, we're developing this unconstrained project list. Well, what if Constitution is an option? Well, then we should put in, we have the feasibility study. Well, is it an option? Well, yes, it's a study. And what if it's recommended approval or the approach? Well, then we should have a project to do preliminary design and advance it, right? And that's wrong, because now we're putting the cart before the horse. And it looked like it was predetermined, right? So we agreed, I heard the neighborhood say, you guys already made the decision. And I'm like, why? We haven't. They're like, it's project's here. You know what? You're right. We need to take the project out because it's not predetermined. So you'll see Project 106 is out. It does give that appearance. We're guilty of that. Apologize. Sometimes we gotta eat crow. It does taste good. We agree that project comes out. The other problem is calling the Constitution extension again, saying, you've already again predetermined what the solution is, and that's not true. So we are taking a step back. We're saying this is a sub area, and there's multiple solutions. There is identified congestion, and it only gets worse in the future. We know that the Constitution already intersects Paseo, and you're already getting out of neighborhood traffic going through your neighborhoods to get to downtown, I-25, and vice versa, right? So there's already some cut through that we already know. So we're like, okay, this feasibility study that we're talking about is not just Constitution. We need to expand it, we need to correctly identify it. It's a mobility study. It needs to look at Fillmore. We know there's improvements to UNFO. And we just need to take a step back and answer a lot of questions. Questions as staff that we still have too. We, as a profession for 30 years, there's some things I know, but when we get into a solution like this, we need a lot more in-depth discussion and analysis of the process. So So we, guilty, needed to change, had started off wrong, but I think we're taking as a result of your input a corrected course to hopefully address your concerns, take things off the table that appeared that they were already predetermined, and move forward from that. Now, some of the collaboration with the neighborhoods already, they were like, okay, Tim, you're talking, we hear you. I've worked with a lot of them, they trust me, and they're like, but what if you're not here? What if you're not here? What safety guidelines are, we know where you are, what you're doing, but what if you're not here in the future? And I'm like, okay, we need to do a call-out box. We did this in the first transportation plan. It identifies specifics and particulars. This, as Nancy pointed out, this is adopted by ordinance, so as we move forward in the future with feasibility study, we'll have these safeguards and these parameters to follow so that there's more comfort level that the city's not going to be forcing something and that we're considering all these neighborhood mitigating strategies and such so that we're not doing something that's not compatible with the neighborhood. And I know people are going to say, well, the road next to us isn't compatible. And that's the feasibility study, work with that. It's undetermined. We don't know what it looks like. But let's make sure that these mitigating strategies are part of that study. So we already started some of that. You can see that we have the study guidelines. We're still modifying the plans because it needs to read correctly and be, it just needs to make sense. So this call-out box is going to be in there. We're going to take input from this meeting. It's important for you to give us some input on these mitigating strategies, which you want to make sure we cover, okay, for this study, so that's not missed in the future. You can see that some of the things that have been discussed is, if we consider Constitution, it will not be more than 4 minutes, right? It won't be. That if
Won't be more than 4 lanes.
if there is right-of-way needed, that it's not forced. And I didn't want to say that we will not do any right-of-way because we could probably do it in the existing right-of-way, but there may be homeowners next to Constitution that may say, you know what, you don't need me, but please buy me out. And again, I hate saying that because that's not the goal, and that sounds like we predetermined the project, but we haven't. But I'm trying to describe why we kind of put some of this language in this guideline because it's not forced.
Can you do full screen? We can't wait.
Can we also hurry?
Yes. Yeah, okay, I'm almost done. It's on the back of the handout too, from the FAQs. Okay. I just heard hurry up. Okay, I'll hurry up. Okay, I'm also being told these are on the website. On that, they will be by Monday on the Connect COS project website, along with the video of this presentation of today's town hall meeting. So for those people who aren't here and might hear word of mouth, and I'm sorry you have to watch it, apologies from the city staff, but please go to coloradosprings.gov /Connect COS. I think I've talked enough, you're right. We're going to give it to Nancy and she's going to facilitate questions. We're here to answer.
Great, so we have about 35 or so people who have signed up. With that, I see a hand in the back, go ahead. I can't do this popcorn style,
I
but
just want to sign up. I didn't see the sheet.
you want to sign up? Okay, Sam will come back with a clipboard.
No problem.
Start with who's already on here. Before we get started, here's the clipboard, Sam. Sam, here. Okay. We would like to limit this to 3 minutes. Sam will be running a timer, tap you on the shoulder. If you have a comment to make your comment, please do it within 3 minutes. I'll kind of let you know when you're running out of time. If you have a question, it gets answered, but you still aren't quite, you have a clarifying question. When you're at the podium, feel free to say, help me understand this, what you just said. So it can be a little bit of a dialogue. If you have something to say that was said just the person before you, and you still feel passionate, you want to say it, of course you can. If you feel like it's been said well, please pass and allow the next person to speak so that we can get as many voices into the room as possible. And please, please, please be respectful. There's no need to yell. I'm going to trust that all of you are not going to yell at me or the staff. It's just not respectful, and it isn't helpful. We're human beings. We're all doing the best we can with what we've got. So with that, and ideas also. Yes, sir?
I would suggest that people who know they're coming up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I just got to go with my process, sir. I'm sorry. I want to get to the
I would
process.
suggest that the people who are coming up start moving towards.
Yes, I will give people a heads up. Yes, thank you for that. Yes. So the first person to sign up is Dana Counter, and Lisa Hickey, you will be after Dana. So Dana, if you'd start walking up. Lisa Hickey, you'll be next. And then after Lisa Hickey is PJ Moore, so just so you know. So please, Mr. Counter, go ahead, and could you just start the timer for 3 minutes, please, Charles?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I live down at the end of East Madison and the south, so this construction of this expressway is going to have a tremendous impact on all of us along East Madison and the south. I've only got 3 minutes, so I'm going to briefly go through my concerns. My first concern is safety. Safety of the school children. These school children, many of them have to walk to school. Okay, then secondly is safety for the seriously ill people in the Penrose Hospital. There is no doubt going to be power outages. What does this mean to people that are on an operating table or whatever? My next concern is safety for the people in an area where there's a fire. There will be very limited access for a fire truck. There will be limited access for the school children of these 2 schools here. There will be limited access to the Penrose Hospital. They're out of parking space now, you know, and then if there's an emergency vehicles, you know, how are they going to get to the Penrose Hospital on time to save this person's life? Okay, now I probably don't have too much more time, but I'm also concerned about the cost estimates of this if this plan goes through. My background is heavy industrial construction. I've got a construction engineer. I've done projects all over the world. This project was probably going to cost anywhere from $100 million to $150 million, and there'll be many schedule delays because of lack of material shortages. So really this is all I've got to say, but one thing I would like for you to do, Ms. Hamgen, is at the end of this, I would ask you to please show hands. Those who approve and those who do not approve. And so that way, all of this is recorded, so the public will know that for all those people here, this is what their desires are.
Yes, sir. I will do that.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. And PJ Moore, you're next.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Torman Hickey. My mother lives in Belleville across the street. My husband and I live a half a block away in T-Gap Addition. I support, my husband disagrees, I support the feasibility study because I'm interested to see what the city can do with this route. I think that there could be improvements to our neighborhood as a result, but only if there's a robust public process, if you listen to our input, and if you spend a lot of money. I'm not sure the city's willing to do that, so I'm very interested to see what the feasibility study brings. I'm worried about islanding of our community. That may affect our property values and certainly our quality of life. We've already got high speeds on Union, congestion on Fillmore, and if we bring in another corridor, it will isolate our community from the rest of the city. Our property values are usually our most important asset, so they're critically important to us. Public transit could be expanded through this project. We would welcome that.
Public transit. Yeah, these ideas are being captured. Thank you for that. Yep.
Thank you. Public transit can increase our property values and our quality of life. We've got a lot of elderly people walking around this neighborhood. They don't have close public transit opportunities. My husband, due to a disability, walks though from T-Gap to Penrose every day to work. He cannot drive, and so we need good walkability and bikeability all around the neighborhood to preserve that and even increase the safety and safe bike lanes and pedestrian access. My suggestion for you to consider would be to make it below grade and throughout our neighborhoods with bridges across that would improve our roads. Our neighborhoods are some of the most valuable in the city, maybe not per house value, but because they're close in. They do not require new roads, no new infrastructure, no new water. Therefore, you should preserve them even more than some of the outer areas of our city. I touched on all the issues I'm interested in. Really appreciate this meeting this morning, and we look forward to more public input.
Thank you, Lisa. PJ, you're next. Robert Schuchart, you will be after PJ, Robert Schuchart, and then Diane Bridges.
Thank you. I'm CJ Moore, and I've lived in this area for the last 25 years. And I like the uniqueness of how quiet it is, but we also have a unique neighborhood in the area, having anywhere from bungalows to mansions, which is one of the very few cities around that has that. And I really believe that this project will drastically affect the quality of the life of the people who live here, and the increase of noise, pollution, safety hazards. I know that you're always looking, and I was around and living in the neighborhood 20 years ago when this was first brought up. And I think that you have other alternatives, and you could have 20 years ago made other alternatives besides coming back to this table again. And you do have a corridor going from Woodman all the way out to 24. You have Martin Luther King going out to Powers and then out to 24. So I don't think that this is really something that our neighborhoods need. And we do have a diversity of people that live in these neighborhoods that it would drastically impact. And I know that some people will have the road very close to them, so what you do, put up one of those walls that you have out on 25 to help block the noise. I'm totally against it.
Thank you very much. Robert Schuchart, and then Diane Bridges, and then Lisa Mason.
My name is Bob Schuchart, and I've lived in Colorado Springs since 1989. And I'm quite familiar with this beautiful group of neighborhoods in this area. And obviously, there has to be funding for this project if it's approved and when it's approved, if it ever is approved. There are far too many other issues in the city of Colorado Springs to resolve that need attention. An example, crime, police, fire, safety, existing infrastructure that needs attention. Please take care of those first before resurrecting a dream project. Okay. And lastly, I'll conclude, I'll be well less than 3 minutes. And just a thought for the city leadership, maybe it's time to seriously consider growth management and having a charter that defines strategic policies of growth management for Colorado Springs.
I'm going to comment on that and say that right now City Council is in the middle of voting on an ordinance for water, making sure we have enough water for the city. That is a management tactic. And I agree with you, sir. We need to be doing that. Thank you. Diane Bridges, please. And then after Diane is Lisa Mason.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Diane Bridges. I really would prefer to face the other direction. I'm the chair of the Historic Neighborhoods Partnership, which is a collection of neighborhoods. We are neighborhood advocates of older historic neighborhoods. And we've been in existence for about 2 years. And the reason why I'm up here today is I just want to say, you know, we've been working with the city planning and public works and traffic engineering in the last 2 years. And it's been a wonderful collaborative experience. And so I just want to set that stage that yes, there's this singular meeting today, but there will be, I like the word earlier, a robust public process. I believe that, you know, regarding this mobility study. And I just would like to say, trust that process, trust the city in that at the right time, additional engagement will occur. You know, we have there's been a few examples already quoted just within the last 2 years. For example, I think Travis mentioned the Platte, you know, changes, Platte Avenue. For example, the one-way couplet was removed at the request and advocacy of the neighborhood. There's an ongoing initiative right now on the safety measures on North Nevada. We're very optimistic about that. And then plus we've had really good discussion on a north-south transit system, you know, through the area. So we're very focused on older historic neighborhoods. And again, in my belief, over the last couple of years, have had really good partnership with the city. And so I would just encourage that you believe that will happen, that there will be collaboration, and that we look at needs here from a balanced perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. And Diane, I would ask, because I did tell a few people about you that you would be here and said you would be a good person to talk to. Would you maybe, as we end, kind of just stand somewhere and be available for folks? Thank you. Lisa Mason, and then Jess Krukberg, you're next, and after that, Tom Hartig.
Lisa Mason, I live at 2521 North Corona, 2 doors away from Rock Island Trail. And I'm not infectious. I am 3 weeks post-op at open heart surgery. They split open my sternum. I'm a little bit miffed about this whole thing, but that's why I'm here, because of my passion about this. I was at the council meeting in June talking about this. I should have just taken a tape recorder and have it played here today. But that tells you my passion about this. Let me weave in a couple things. Delighted to have the comments that we're already having today. I learned to play flute here in this auditorium, 5th grade here, 6th grade here, 7th, 8th, and 9th, Horace Mann. And then I was riding my bicycle from the Wasson area over to Penrose Hospital as a candy striper. I fell in love with this neighborhood way back then. So when I left Colorado to go to New Mexico for my adult work life for that, parents got older, moved back, called Bobby Price at Platinum Realty and asked her if there was this really passionate lady that said, I want to live in these 2 blocks that are north of the park, and maybe I'll accept the 3 blocks over to Templeton Gap. That's second choice. Do you know how long it took me to get into this neighborhood? Because I knew how desirable it was. I knew how cool it was. And it took me a long time to get here. So kind of back to that thing that you said about, oh, well, if you really want a quiet neighborhood without pollution, Constitution going through, why don't you sell? Someone said that to me, why don't you sell? Well, let me address that right now. We've already had this information on the front page of the newspaper. You can't tell me that somebody looking at a 2-bedroom, 1 bath that's 6 blocks south of the park and a house like mine that's 2 doors away from the trail is going to be able to get the same property prices, and that's now. As we get closer and closer to this, that's going to be more of a reality. There are a lot of people on that yellow line that cannot afford to have any diminution of their property values. Last thing I'm going to say. I think the basic assumption of east-west mobility is a crummy assumption to start with. By the time we get done with feasibility studies, constructions, overruns, etc., even right now we're putting a Band-Aid on the whole problem by saying we need to get these people to I-25. Has anyone driven I-25 recently? Oh my word! 10 years ago, when I was still down in New Mexico, we were bringing horse trailers through saying, oh God, we gotta go through Colorado Springs. Who knows? What I'd say, take the $2.5 million for the feasibility study, put it on a study for mass transit and for a ring road out there on the beach.
After an open heart surgery. Jess, you're next, and then after Jess is Tom Hartig, and then Andrea Barker following. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow. My name is Jess Barker. Thank you, Councilor Engel, for being here, as well as some of the city employees that are here speaking of this issue. I also live on that Rock Island Trail line that you have on your handout maps. Oh, you bet. I'm at 406 to the south, and just be kind of directly impacted by such a project like this, no matter what it would look like, and no matter when it gets built. I also have, as far as a stakeholder, point of view, I've lived in the neighborhood for about 13 years. I've lived in Colorado Springs since 1989. I also have a kiddo here at this school. I've got one at North Middle School and one over at Palmer. And my wife is also a teacher here. So just as far as being invested, I certainly am. I've worked with, for the city of Colorado Springs. I'm off right now for 25 years.
Some of our firefighters.
So I'm also a stakeholder in that role. And have watched, I think what we're talking about here is it's the growing pain, right? Turning from a town into a city, and where we each stand on seeing the city shift and change and grow. And I certainly have my opinions on that. And some it's good and some it's bad. So I think to your point, sir, about having and to you too, Travis, about running that plat feasibility study, it seems like the money was spent, a little less than $2 million, a good stakeholder process, and it seems like that has kind of landed on, not necessarily a do-nothing, but on some reasonable accommodations, but not a bunch of lanes and not a bunch of property acquisitions. So it's kind of laid it to rest as an issue. And I've watched this as well come up, for 28 years again and again. So it kind of keeps bubbling back up in and out of city council. So it's coming from staff, right? It keeps bubbling back up. It would be great to kind of end the discussion. So I guess I'm in support of spending some money and having a feasibility study, as long as other folks have said we have this robust process and input. And I agree with the folks that had come before. They kind of took any wind out of my sails that I was going to say. And I think we do need to trust the process, as evidenced by the fact that we're probably breaking fire code here.
Don't tell anyone.
Sorry about that. By everyone who's here, and I know I can't see the people in the hall and those online, but this is obviously an issue that people have a lot of thoughts about and they want to give input. So thank you for listening, sir. Thank you for learning. Thank you for pulling 106 off, because you're absolutely right. As a public figure, that perception is the reality about some of those things. So thank you for doing that. And one last thing, a little out of scope. The Rock Island Trail project, which has been on the books for a long time, has begun along that little line you have there on your.
Might be easier than trying to eat the whole darn thing at once. So we have an elephant that's been hanging in our neighborhood for 20 years or 40 years. I've been here for about 40 myself. So I've written this down here. My idea is to make Constitution a one-way street all the way from Walled Powers eventually, but this corridor right now would be the first part. It would be controlled, the speed could be controlled by sequential stoplights, so that you could only go 45 miles an hour one way to 4 lanes to the west.
Let him speak. He has an idea. Let's just hear it.
And then instead of having the 2 4 lanes, 2 lanes this way, 2 lanes that way, turn lanes and all this sort of thing, if we were to go to just go one way, and then we could come one way back on Uinta, and it would, you could move the traffic in pods by timing these lights. You would have breaks between the traffic when you have access and egress to the one-way road. It would go each way. There would be less pollution, there'd be less noise because people would be stopping and starting. There'd be going through at a slow speed. You could control by the speed of the lights. So that's my idea. It could go further. I live on Rock Island Trail on Rustic Hills, so it could go all the way to Powers if you wanted to. But we would need to set that parameter as part of this project.
Thank you for coming, Tom. Thank you for sharing your idea. Andrea Barker, and then after Andrea, Tom Morosky. After Tom, Judith Rice-Jones.
Andrea Barker, live in the Old North End, first moved to Colorado Springs in 1985. I've lived out east on Palmer Park, I've lived on Uinta, between Palmer Park and Hancock. I've lived in the near North End, and now I live on North Tejon Street in the Old North End. I was active on the Greenway Fund when it was first envisioning the Legacy Loop, and worked hard on getting that idea forward. Thrilled with the progress being made on that. Was also part of the review, the citizen advisory for the Ships Run project. And I'm very excited when we look not only multimodal of how people move, but also multi-layered with infrastructure. What's not getting mentioned or hasn't been mentioned yet is the stormwater aspect, and the fact that there are some active rail that is a part of all of this corridor as well. I think there's huge opportunity, and it's important to understand that when you see a map, it's two dimensions. We are dealing with something that is very much 3 dimensions. We have opportunities to understand what to prioritize and what to put at the daylight level. And if at that level, it's neighborhood, it's connections. I live in the Old North End. My parents live at Mackenzie Place. I transit across this big red line on this map frequently when going to my mom's. I think it's possible for us to have neighborhood scale of people moving in any modality at the surface level. And if we looked at what I think of a Constitution connector is 1 lane each direction and below grade. If you can solve what's happening with stormwater and you can do also this roadway connector, it's great. When you're on the west side of what this map is showing, we're actually into city-owned land. That is where the fleet facilities are. That's old industrial places right next to the parking lot that's kind of the trailhead for Legacy Loop. There's a lot of real estate there to do a lot of the connections that we need to do. The feasibility study is the perfect thing to look at these details and to look at how do we work within a certain significant depth that respects where the water needs to go, where the people need to go, whether it's kids on bikes, whether it's fat bikes in the snow, whether it's all those different things. That's what we want. I want this city designed for the next 20 years, and I want the 8-year-old and the 80-year-old to find their way safely and to have not the disruptions of neighborhood. This historic corridor is a natural boundary that has space.
Thank you, Andrea, very much. Appreciate that. Tom Morosky and Judith Rice-Jones. After Judith Rice-Jones is Gary Pittman.
Thank you. That's why I feel grateful for the opportunity to speak to you folks. I'm Vice President of the Homeowners Association at 2400. Closer. I'm Vice President of the Homeowners Association at 2400 Wood Avenue, a community of 38 townhomes just west of Penrose Hospital. You'll see it on the maps you have there. It's circled. We get to the scene of the accident first. We're right at the Popsicle Bridge, and we experienced terrific noise already from I-25. It's bad in the summers, hard to eat outside because of the lack of fumes. I know you can mitigate noise somewhat, but I'm unaware of mitigations for fumes. And fumes from the 4-lane expressway passing right by our units will be difficult to deal with. Loss value, the percent we hear is losing 10%. And for a number of us, most of us are retired at 2400 Wood Avenue. A number of us are widows. We're thinking about running out of money before we die, losing 10% value on a house when we might have to move to something smaller for our last years is a real penalty. So we're talking quality of life at 2400 Wood, which is not, in fact, what I want to talk about now. I want to talk about what's on the back side of the handout most of you had this morning. It has to do with the fundamental issue of how we're going to frame what we're talking about. The sense is the city has framed it as an expressway or congestion. And my point to the city is the issue is really an expressway and congestion. Adding lanes and roads lightens congestion only temporarily. Congestion returns in a handful of years. That was the practice of research decades in and decades out. It's not some fringe idea that some touchy-feely people came up with that, oh, the congestion will return. It's hard science. And what that says is you folks can pursue a misguided approach by putting in an extension only to have traffic eventually return. What research I've read suggests it's 3 to 10 years, and it's back. So for a temporary gain, the neighborhoods here suffer permanent damage, a scar through their communities.
Can you wrap it up, please? We're over 3 minutes now.
So for $200 million, am I getting close to 3?
You are at 3. You're beyond 3 now.
Thank you. Don't just remove the extension from this feasibility study. Propose a freeway, I'm sorry, a greenway through what's now the Ave.
Next, after Judith, Gary Pittman.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm here representing myself, but first of all, Berta Walsky, who I hope many of you know, called me yesterday. She was planning on coming, but her daughter and one of her caregivers has COVID, so she didn't think she had to risk it. Berta turned 90, I'm going to cry. Berta turned 95 on December 3rd. She's lived in Colorado Springs for 79 years, 69 of those years. On Alamo. She was one of the defendants in the 1970s when the League of Women Voters sued the city of Colorado Springs, who wanted to take Fontanero across Monument Valley Park and sell off the north part of the park. She was one of the people who successfully won that lawsuit to protect Monument Valley Park. And now once in the crosshairs. Berta asked me to read an article from the newspaper, which unfortunately I could not find, that was written in 1972 when the Burns Theater came down, about the incredible value of the historic parts of a neighborhood for having a sense of community. And if any of you have not had the opportunity to read John Harner's book called Profiting from the Peak, I encourage you to read it about how we could have a sense of community if we didn't destroy all of the wonderful things that Palmer had proposed and dreamed of, and architects in the past, rather than builders, have constructed. So I invite you to consider that when you consider these things. I also am really disheartened because I visited last week several times the Trolley Museum, and my neighborhood, I live in Bonneville, so I was hoping some people from the Trolley Museum that was built by railroads. I was at that meeting, and I would like to that was 22 or 23 years ago. I'm really glad that Craig Lewis was not killed because it was the most violent neighborhood meeting I've ever seen. But one of the things that was proposed back then, and was also proposed by the trail group, the City Task,
was a rails to trails corridor. If any of you subscribe to the New York Times or email me, I'll send you the articles. There have been 2 articles recently. There are 2 rails to trails corridors in New York State, one of which runs 750 miles north-south, the other one almost as long east-west. Rails to trails corridors, none of you mentioned the railroad. What is the matter with you? So incredibly frustrating. I'm a huge supporter of multimodal transportation, of traffic calming. There's a ton of information. The amount of information that's on induced or generated traffic, which you all have to know about, is readily available. It's out there for everyone to see and to learn. My neighborhood is incredibly historically significant. The first post-war development, it was written nationally in 3 construction journals. It's really, really important. It's a beautiful neighborhood. There are people who live there, a lot of them are black. I put large when I moved there. People who move there and intend to die there. Please don't make it an unpleasant experience for them. Thank you, Jerry.
Gary Pittman, you're next, then Michael Tozier, I believe, I hope that's how you pronounce it, is after Gary, and then Christy Williams will be after.
Good morning, my name is Gary Pittman. I live 4 blocks east of Union on Constitution and the Bird Streets. Some of the issues have already been raised, but first question is environmental concerns. We talk about noise, air, but one thing that has not been discussed is wildlife. Wildlife has in these neighborhoods, just as we have Constitution. There is a corridor for wildlife in these neighborhoods. So you have to take that into consideration. What are you going to do? You're going to relocate the wildlife? I don't think so. Secondly, you touched on eminent domain. Eminent domain, folks, will take place. No question about it. You are going to have to remove some of these properties. Yes, sir, it will. Trust me. And the third thing I would like to address is the traffic pattern. One thing that you have to understand about the traffic pattern of this city, most of your growth is out east. So the traffic, the people coming across Constitution, they're going to work up and down Nevada and so on. They're not getting to I-25. These are working people coming into the city itself. All the traffic that you're talking about that's going to I-25 is taking Academy and Powers. That's where all your growth and your traffic is. It's not coming to I-25. Believe me, I know this. The feasibility study, in my opinion, is not necessary in this area. What I would suggest you do is look at the feasibility studies up and down Powers and Academy and see how that is going to affect, because I know you want to extend Powers to I-25. That's going to take away a lot of this congestion you're talking about. Instead, your feasibility monies should be put into public transportation in this city. Why do I want to say that? Because, folks, I'm one of your city bus drivers. Not doing a good job on the proper transportation for this city. We have old buses, we have buses that break down all the time, and you need to put the feasibility study monies into buying new transportation, meaning buses for this city.
Michael Tozier, are you still here? Yes, and after Michael will be Christy Williams. Thank you.
My name is Michael Tozier.
Louder. Can't hear you.
Yeah, you're going to have to pull that mic up and get close. Thank you.
My name is Michael Tozier. I've lived here since 1952, which is 70 years or so. I've watched the city council for the last 40, 45 years, and they say to put our trust in it, and I don't. And I've seen it ruin things as they go along. Now, since we are having a issue on, Constitution, why not put light rail? You have to put in light rail. Forget about tearing everything out. Forget about the roads. Leave the roads the way they are. Put a bright light rail on the Rock Island line. Also, one thing you didn't mention is that if this will close one elementary school at least, Madison, you are putting a 4-lane major road 100 feet from the front door of Madison Elementary School. That would have to close. You don't have a choice.
Madison is, we're at Stratton.
It affects the whole thing.
Madison.
All the country, the whole
Keep going.
way.
Now that you're passing finally a hold on building permits with the water issue, this issue on the highway, or on the road, is not going to get worse. You're not going to have the water, more buildings out there to have them come through. Why not put super slab in? Have it cut off Colorado Springs, due north, and bypass Colorado Springs and have the roads come in there. This is another way for them to move out of here. I also suggest a closure lane in Fillmore, because what we have here is thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did I call the next person? Oh, Vicki Smith and Christy. Yes.
It would be hard to wipe them over. Hello, my name is Christy Williams. I am a lifelong resident of Colorado Springs. I've lived here my whole life. Evidence to my gray hair, that's been a while. I brought in this neighborhood for a reason. It's charming, it's established, it's quiet, and it's near some charming, high-achieving schools. I could have bought out east, where the houses are cheaper per square foot, but I didn't. The city says there needs to be more east-west flow, and people are saying it would only be 35 miles per hour, but street racing on Constitution and speed bringing noise and disruption to our neighborhoods. You said there are not a lot of east-west connections, so this means that this east-west connection would be packed, crowded, noisy, and bring lots of pollution and disrupt our neighborhoods, and I'm really concerned about the schools as well. It's not the fault of our historic neighborhoods that the city, for years, decades, has let irresponsible urban sprawl happen out east. Our neighborhoods alone, we bought here because I didn't expect to have any type of expansions. That's why I bought here. I would bought east and looked out on those houses, the sea of houses. There are enough people here that are opposed to this, here in this physical space, as well as online. You would think then you would drop the feasibility study because that's a waste of taxpayer money. Thank you for listening to me.
All right. Oh, Vicki Smith is next. Sorry. Thank you, Vicki. After Vicki, Linnell, Ramona Williams, I believe. Linnell, and then Philip Meinhardt. Go ahead, Vicki.
My name is Vicki Smith, and I have lived in Colorado Springs since 1967. I have seen a lot of work. The population in Colorado Springs has increased by about 69% since 1992. During that time, we have seen our ownership of cars increase per household from 0 to 2. Most people in Colorado Springs report driving alone to work. And we wonder why we have traffic congestion. The average commute time is 24 minutes. So soon we will have an 8,000-seat amphitheater, a citywide fiber optics network, a new manufacturing facility in Rock Rimmon, And we will see Nevada Avenue will have 6 lanes going between Fillmore and Austin Bluffs. We will see that Fillmore will have 6 lanes between I-25 and Nevada Avenue. We will see more eastern sprawl, and we will see continued infill development. Our city leaders and their developer cohorts think that this growth equalizes or equates to prosperity. In reality, the growth of Colorado Springs is more closely aligned to loss. Loss of clean air, loss of public safety, loss of affordable housing, loss of diversity, loss of natural beauty, loss of our night skies, loss of quietude, loss of quality of life, loss of our streets, loss of our neighborhoods, and our sense of community. Our income is failing to keep up with the cost of living, and our property taxes and utilities are on a constant upswing. But mostly, we have lost our trust and we have lost our voice in this community. The myopic quest of continued growth paints dissenting members of the community as enemies of progress. We are scolded, we are belittled with words of, we know, change is difficult. But innovation and progress are separate constructs. We don't see our losses as progress. Colorado Springs has taken on a medical model of growth and development. And they have taken on a medical model of how to solve and diagnose our issues. We come from a symptoms, not a cause standpoint. Progress is not the single solution of building more roads to ease traffic congestion. Research has proven it, in fact, to be a very poor solution. Progress is not the destruction of our neighborhoods and the loss of our quality of life. Einstein said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So we ask that you please end the insanity and look beyond the medical model. If you must spend our hard-earned tax dollars on a study, we urge you to look for innovative ways to resolve traffic congestion. Study the possibility of light rail systems, trolleys, carpooling, toll roads, staggered work schedules, continuous flow intersections, and smart traffic signals. Our neighborhoods are assets, and we shouldn't have to lose them to prosperity. Thank you.
And after Linnell is Philip Meinhardt. If you can kind of get ready. After Philip is Art Howells. Linnell.
Thank you.
Good morning. I have been a resident of Colorado Springs since 1954. Formerly, my childhood lived on South Nevada, and that was before the interstate. I know what bad traffic is. And today I live four houses away from Constitution Avenue on Valley Forge. I've owned the house since 1982. And to me, just the thought of more traffic being on Constitution is very maddening. We go to church right across the way here at the Church of Christ on East LaSalle. We have more than 100 members. A lot of them are old, have some young, but the idea of making it more difficult for us to go to a place of worship is not a pleasant thing. But the points that a lot of people have made, it's like, why cannot this be put to bed permanently? Because it comes up every few years, and I appreciate the remarks of a lot of people that have made them, but please consider the beauty of our neighborhood. We have houses that are constructed well, that are very old, and a lot of us have put a lot of our life savings into updating them. We have water problems here. We have an area, in this area where we're kind of in a dead zone for the police protection. We're between one and another, and there are lots of positive things that can be done before ruining our street, our homes. Thank you very much.
Actually, just before you, I misspoke. Ann Lucas, and after Ann, Philip, you'll be next.
My name is Ann Lucas, and I live at Institute and Illinois, which is just a couple blocks north in the Kitty Hawk neighborhood, and just one block west of Templeton Gap. And one of our concerns in this particular neighborhood is where, if you have this plan of extending Constitution to I-25 at Fontanero, current Fontanero, where would the actual prevention of access, I guess, I don't know how to word that, where would that begin? Would that begin at Union? Would that be at Paseo? Would that be at Templeton Gap? Otherwise, if it's at Templeton Gap, the neighborhoods of Kitty Hawk in particular, we would be boxed in on three sides, then busy traffic. No one can say that Templeton Gap traffic would not be increased. As everyone knows, Templeton Gap and Paseo are already full of traffic trying to get to downtown. How would that be impacted is one of our big questions. What has already been brought up again is the wildlife. Where do you think the deer that currently use the spillway area and the Rock Island Trail area, where do you think those deer will go? How many more car accidents, car versus deer, will we see now, either on Templeton Gap or Union or Fillmore? Remember that the wildlife comes from Palmer Park. My neighborhood probably remembers a couple of years ago when the mountain lion walked down Pennsylvania Avenue to get to that spillway at 2:30 in the afternoon. We all thought we were seeing something. It was hallucinating, but it was. It was an actual mountain. So again, where do these wildlife go? I do think that part of Colorado living is because of our outdoor activities, is because of our trails, and is because of our wildlife experiences. I myself am a Colorado native growing up in Douglas County. I lived in Parker when it was a blinking stoplight at Main Street, and there wasn't even a stoplight from Lincoln Avenue to Highway 83, and you can see what happened to that now. That's why my parents moved there for us children to grow up in the 70s in Parker. I chose, after leaving in the military, I chose to come back to Colorado Springs and buy in the Kitty Hawk neighborhood deliberately, because as someone else mentioned, it is an already established neighborhood. I didn't have to worry about something going up in my backyard, so I thought. Also, I wanted, again, a neighborhood close in because I work in healthcare, I work at multiple hospitals. I can get where I need to go. That was my choice. I could have built out east like anyone else. I wanted to do that drive. But again, I was thinking ahead. I also want to say that when you look at property values, everyone wants their property value maintained. You have to look at the actual population of the people that live close to where this Constitution extension would be. Many of us have paid off our homes. That is our entire life savings maybe. That's our biggest asset. We're pleased to see the growth of our asset, but not to be destroyed by something like this. We are not the people that are building out east, and I have no aversion to debt and no aversion to remaining in debt. And I know that's going to probably not make some people happy, but you need to look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Art Howells is next. After Art will be Mary Jo. Again.
Excuse, I think I was
My name's
skipped.
Phil Minor. We've lived for 25 years north of Constitution
I was skipped.
in the Bridlewood neighborhood. I can recount some of the things most of you have. We have seen a major increase in the traffic in just the last couple of years. I don't know what's causing it. We experienced, I counted this morning between the top of the hill and here there are 52 curb cuts, and that does not count alleys and individual houses. We have difficulty getting out of our streets. I can see in the future there will be additional lights that possibly in Avondale, definitely Oro Blanco. But I want to skip over most of my own notes because I have a brilliant idea while I was sitting here. 40-something years ago, we lived off of Flint Ridge at the base of the bluffs in between the floodways. And they, through a city vote, they decided to close Flint Ridge when they rebuilt Union. So we all of a sudden, having a quarter-mile drive to Colorado Community Schools, we had a mile and a half.
to get back out to the academy in October. How about cutting Constitution at the sale entirely? At Union, turn Constitution into a two-lane, narrow, 20 to 25 mile an hour speed street with impediments. Stop it, do not let it connect to the sale. Or if you connect it to the sale, make sure there are impediments to keep traffic from turning there and going toward downtown. That would reduce the traffic through the neighborhood, push it over to Van Buren, which I know some of you won't like, but it would stop this entire concept of Constitution. They cut leverage on us by a city vote, reduce property values, increase travel times, but the traffic has accommodated. The neighborhoods have readjusted to getting out to academy. So I would suggest essentially cutting Constitution at Union and making it a neighborhood street, not a district.
Thank you, sir. So Art is next, and then Ross Williams, you will be after Art. And Mary Jo, then you will come back after Ross.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. My wife and I have lived in Colorado Springs for 80 years. Comes in October. We now live at 2400 Wood Avenue. In townhomes, lived 30 years. Our home is our largest single investment. I suspect that's
a little louder, please.
Our home is our largest single investment. I'm sure that's similar to many of the people in this room. Constitution Avenue reduced the value of our home, our investment, by 10% or more, according to some studies. That 10% would never return. One of the things that has not been discussed is the actual cost of a Constitution extension. I'm sure that can't be nailed down until you have further studies and design, but it's a lot of money. I've heard 150 to 200 million. Who will pay for that? Of course, the taxpayers. Very few people in this room will pay that 150 to 200 million. If the city decides to go ahead and approve the extension, you're wrong.
Thank you, sir. Ross Williams, you're next, and then Mary Jo.
Hello, my name is Ross Williams. I live within eyesight of the school here. I'm also a planner for county parks, so I'm very well aware of the planning process that go into these kinds of studies, master plans and such. This is a very unique neighborhood. It has a sense of place like no other here in the Springs. It is very safe, secure. We have people walking their dogs, their children to school, everything else. We don't want to lose that. 30 years ago, the city gladly accepted Van and Lewis into the city without really much consideration as to how people were going to get there. When Powers was built, it was kind of a dead-end street both north and south. I think the best east-west solution for transportation is actually a north-south, and that is Powers, Highway 21. A lot has been done recently to advance Powers to a full through fare, but I think rather than concentrating on a very small, very well-established, pricey neighborhood in central Colorado Springs as being the solution to east-west mobility, instead finish Powers. Finish from northwest to the new interchange. I know right now there's a South Powers corridor extension feasibility study happening as we speak. Please expedite that. Please finish that extension. Work with CDOT, the state, the feds to be able to get that funding. And I think you'll find out very quickly that that north-south route will in fact ease up on all of your east-west corridors, as has already been studied as part of that study. They've shown that Fontaine and all those east-west streets down south will have a dramatic decrease in traffic. I think with that, with Powers corridor done, I think Constitution becomes moot, and our wonderful neighborhood will stay exactly as it is. Thank you.
After Morgan Chavez, you're up. After Morgan will be Kathy Sharkey.
I'm married to a chief. I live on Lafayette Road, 7 houses up from Constitution. In the Belleville neighborhood, which is not on the maps, that needs to be noted, we're between Union and DeSale. Our streets would be closed off. Our alleys would be closed off if you close it at Union, as you're talking about. I went to kindergarten here in 1955 at Stratton. I purposely chose to buy my house in this neighborhood as I was retiring. The value of my house will get me into long-term care if I ever need it. If that is diminished, my medical care, if I need it, is diminished. I used to be able to catch a bus on my corner 15 years ago, getting downtown in 12, 15 minutes. Now I have to walk half a mile, change buses, so it's now a 45-minute bus ride to get downtown. We need public transportation. I had the joy of living in Europe for 5 years. I had a tram, a train, and 2 buses on my corner to take me wherever I needed to go in Brussels. If I wanted to live out east, I would have chosen to live out there. The people who live out there chose to live out there.
Yes, they did.
I work downtown. We get people that come in there for a show that have no clue, they've never been downtown, and they do not come downtown. The biggest complaint, well, where do I park? Where do I go? I can't go to the library downtown. There's nothing but bars and restaurants downtown now. Within our neighborhood, I can walk to 6 different coffee shops, all small, no chains. Anybody who lives on the Powers corridor is not interested in going downtown. Again, that's north or south to connect to the highway. I'd also like to note that my city councilman, Dave Donson, has not shown up for this meeting. A lot of this is within his district. So he should have been here. He should be also co-sponsoring this meeting. Is he here?
He was planning on being here. I don't know why he was not.
He should have been here. And also, for the last 20 years that I've lived on Lafayette, we've had very little street maintenance. My neighbor's curb has been gone all that time, never fixed. Is it on purpose that they're not fixing the older neighborhoods so that they can say we need to put, people don't care about the neighborhoods, so we can put roads through? Right now, my other neighbor, 7 years ago, somebody came down Constitution from Paseo in 2 blocks, got up to 80 miles an hour, totaled his RV, took out his fence and his stone wall in his backyard. So there needs to be speed control if they're going to do it. It's a stupid.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Team. 2 seats just opened up in the front. If people are wanting to sit down, there are 2 seats up here. Morgan and then Kathy Sharkey after Morgan. Take Kathy off.
Hi, I live actually not on the map, just east of Union in the Wasson neighborhood. I put 2 kids through this school, 8 and 5. When we started here, we actually lived in a different neighborhood. And when we were looking for a new house, we love this area so much. We specifically picked this to move here. We put 2 kids through here, and one's at Man, one's at Palmer. We like this neighborhood because of the community, because of the neighborhood. And you're going to destroy it with this. You're sacrificing West Side and Central residents for the convenience of the East Side. And that's not fair to us. You can't sacrifice our neighborhoods, our schools, our green space because of the east side is not convenient and city council's piss poor planning.
I know he had another meeting prior to this, but he is here now, and I'm sure he will hear more about what preceded part. You want to say something?
No, can we keep going? We have like about 15 minutes. We need to hear from the rest of the people. I'm sorry.
We'll extend it by my one.
D11 can't extend it. Hard stop. It's already said.
Anybody that wants to talk to me afterwards, I'll be outside.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm a little Morgan.
You just got me.
Okay. Oh, great. Sorry, Morgan. Nick.
And I'll go again.
Nick Gabar. Is that right, Nick? And after Nick is Louise Carlson. After Louise Carlson is Mike O'Connor.
Thank you, city officials and my neighbors. I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk to you. What I'd like to say is I don't think that our problem in the city with regard to traffic congestion is an infrastructure problem. We're focused on the wrong thing. Let me say this. My wife and I moved here 12 years ago. I have an Air Force career behind me. We moved some 20 times in the Air Force. So we've lived in 20 different communities. And there is nothing new here in Colorado with regard to traffic problems. These are universal in the United States. And solutions are everywhere. But to focus on infrastructure is a primary solution or first step solution to try to solving the movement of people and things from one side of the city to another. Doesn't necessarily prove anything, nor are they necessarily productive. I think that the Constitution extension will not be successful. I don't see any long-term benefit from doing that, as has been stated here before. When we do that and spend that kind of money on something and make that type of a commitment to speed up traffic flow, it's quickly saturated and within a short period of time becomes obsolete as a solution. So then what do? And that's the problem every community has. I think that the problem is something else entirely that hasn't been really addressed here. And I'm not sure that you want to hear this solution, but I firmly believe that the solution is real. And the solution to the problem we have in getting people from one side of the city to another is us, the drivers. We are the problem. People don't want to hear that. But there is a real lack of self-discipline that we see exhibited by drivers. Very little civility, but a great deal of lack of self-discipline. When you move into a community, to drive in that community is a privilege. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And along with that privilege comes the responsibility to obey the traffic laws, among other things, the other laws of the community, etc. But when everybody, not everybody of course, but when more people than normal are violating the traffic laws, that creates a congestion on the streets. A quick example. You can drive from downtown Colorado Springs, say near Acacia Park, and just go east on Platte Avenue. And if you follow the speed limit, abide by it, you'll find that you will hit every intersection traffic light with a green light. That will greatly facilitate the movement of traffic.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you bringing personal responsibility into the conversation because how we drive, actually, we are part of the solution as well. I really appreciate that. Louise Carlson is next, then Mike O'Connor. We're actually, because of the number of people left, I'm going to shorten it to 2 minutes. Okay. Okay.
Louise Carlson. I've lived in this neighborhood since 78. Since 1978. And thank you for bringing up speed. The Constitution has long been street racing avenue, and extending it and widening it would just exacerbate the problem. The second point is, even though I have white hair, I'm going to speak for the young families that have been moving into our neighborhoods. They've been doing wonderful jobs of remodeling and revitalizing our neighborhoods, and they've moved into these neighborhoods for the exact same reason we are. It's walkable. I ride my bike all over, and on the Rock Island Trail, I met Dana. He's got cool cars, and so I probably
Use the microphone.
Keep talking to the microphone, please.
Because I walk my bike, and that's the kind of neighborhood we want.
Thank you very much. Okay, Michael O'Connor, and then James Will Height. You're up after Mark.
I'm Mike O'Connor.
Mike, sorry, yes.
Off Mead Avenue, Mead Constitution area. And one of the things that a few months ago, when this was addressed, the council tabled it. Now, in over 100 ordinances, they try to put it in the back order. Who put it in? And what financial gain was that individual behind it? You know, I looked up the building permits, right, from 21 here, and 20. There was over 4,000 building permits issued last year, and 78% of them went to units 400 plus. They're telling us we can only board our lawns 3 times a week. Average golf course is using over 30,000 gallons of water a day, and they're not regulated. You know, and basically here with the noise population, I can just go right outside this door and look at the pork in these projects out here. All they needed was a stop sign out there and blinking red light. They put all this concrete out there, the road hazard. You go out here, you got the trip hazards where they're taking away what's needed road spaces with the bike lane. I'm not opposed to bike lanes, I'm just opposed to the location where they're put it. You know, you go to Nevada and stuff. You know, that's the direct route to that hospital, what creates congestion going to the hospital. You know, you turn 2-lane roads into 1-lane roads because the bike lanes is hardly never used. Thank you.
And after Amy is Alex. Amy, are you still here?
You skipped someone.
James Wilhite.
Huh? Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I missed James. James, I apologize. James is next, and then Amy Henry, if you're still here. And after Amy would be Alex Buchko. James.
My topic, I think, was touched on a little bit earlier as far as Temple Gap intersection with Constitution, if it were approved, and the Paseo intersection, if it were approved. Is there going to be a lighted intersection, or would it be, I should say, would it be lighted intersections on both of those? Because Templeton Gap gives us access to Penrose, it gives us access to Bond Shopping Center, which is a vital center for this entire area. And Paseo is your access directly into Patty Jewett, and Patty Jewett is a pretty popular place in town. And so I'm just wondering what you have planned for those intersections, because if you're going to stop them because of the thoroughfare going through there, it's going to be major.
Thank you. And I do imagine that would be addressed in the study, not answerable now, but did you want to speak to that really quickly, Tim?
Real quick, I could say that what you're asking us, one of the guardrails that has been asked from the city to put into a future feasibility study, being no access of Constitution to the existing roads, so there would be no signal.
There would be no what?
There would be no signal, because one of the guardrails that's been asked for us is that the future study not have any intersections with the
How do we get out of the neighborhood?
Let's keep going.
So we need to keep going, but these questions can be, you can talk to Tim afterwards if you want, or the other staff. Well, please talk, thank you, please talk to Tim afterwards. And I'm at Amy Henry and then Alex. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Henry. I was born and raised in Colorado Springs, so obviously I've seen a ton of change. I'm going to start with a quote from one of the induced demand studies. It's irresponsible, and I would add disingenuous, of governments to play on the very real frustration of traffic congestion to get buy-in for something that won't in fact offer any lasting change. If we have been paying attention to our experience, or in the case of city planners, to studies in your field of expertise, everyone in this room knows that building yet another road is not a viable solution to traffic congestion. We all experience the phenomenon of induced demand, and it has been proven over and over again that adding infrastructure in the form of new roads or widening existing roads exacerbates congestion in a relatively short period of time. This ineffectual course of action causes a vicious cycle of predict, provide, and fail. City planners perpetually fail to alleviate traffic congestion but succeed at negatively impacting people's homes, neighborhoods, and quality of life. There is alternatives. In addition to increased public transportation, you could choose to use taxpayer dollars to study ideas that would truly reduce traffic congestion. For instance, re-engineering existing roads with large multi-lane roundabouts at busy intersections to keep traffic flowing, congestion pricing to discourage unnecessary travel during high traffic times, incentivizing businesses to allow employees staggered in and out times and/or a staggered work week, and to offer hybrid schedules if possible, develop and refine park and ride sites, and offer incentives to workers who choose to use them or who choose alternative methods of travel. These are just a few among many ideas that could be explored easily. Please do not continue to waste millions of taxpayers' dollars studying an ineffective, worn-out idea. As you all know, planning a city is not only a science, but an art form. Please, as city planners and decision makers for our city, have the courage and curiosity to explore ideas to beautify our city instead of destroying the beauty that still exists by building yet another road through several historic neighborhoods that will ultimately do nothing to alleviate current traffic congestion.
Yeah, don't.
We have to leave the building
You're
at
trying to
12.
represent everyone.
We have to leave the building at 12. Please come on up, Alex. And then Harry Kitch, and then Diana Harris. We're going to end with you so that we can have a plan for how others can get heard after this meeting.
My name is Alex Butchko. I live off of Constitution in between Towers and Academy. I'd just like to say that I ride my bicycle through the Rock Island Trail twice a day on my way to work, and I use those bike lanes on Templeton Gap, on Fontanera, and on Weaver Street, all the way to downtown. And I would like for you all to know that people like me exist, and we do use the bike infrastructure. I would like to propose that we have the throughfare, the bicycle throughfare of the Rock Island Trail. Now we need the local connections to the Rock Island Trail. In order to get to the Rock Island Trail from where I live, I need to ride along a dangerous high speed of Constitution for half a mile, worrying about getting hit by a car just to get to the safety of the Rock Island Trail. We need more local connections to our bike infrastructure.
We will be setting another public meeting for those of you who didn't get to speak, for the 250 that were turned away. We will get that out. We'll make sure everybody learns about that. We don't have a date on the calendar yet, but we will do that. So please go ahead.
I'm Harry Keith, and I live in Rustic Hills, and I was part of the East-West Mobility Study 20 years ago when this should have been laid to rest. The recommendation from that study was not to have this as an east-west thoroughfare. And the Chamber of Commerce at the city council meeting, the Chamber of Commerce recommended it, and the city council took their recommendation and put it in for the 2021 study. So what I'm saying to everybody is, do not trust the process. Do not trust the process.
We will be missing 10 people, but Diana, we're going to give you the last say at the mic. We will schedule another meeting. Those 10 who were signed up, we'll put you first if you're able to come to the next meeting, and we'll have others as well. Go ahead.
There's a lot of good ideas that were regarded here today, and I think that I'm not going to duplicate any of those. There's one thing that hasn't been mentioned that is a great concern to me. I live at 1201 East LaSalle. I can see this school from my house. I watch all the parents take their kids to school. I watch a lot of kids walk to school by themselves, though, and I'm concerned about these children. Every time we have an overpass anywhere in this city, there's drug use, there's homeless people living there. It is not safe. I won't even ride my bike underneath that Tejon overpass. I did that once. I have PTSD from it. Yeah, it was horrible. And the idea that children are going to be trying to get to this school and that school and having those conditions is much of a concern to me of anything. It's going to destroy our lifestyle to have this here, the noise pollution. I have deer in my backyard. Probably almost everybody in this room has deer in their backyard. And, you know, we like to enjoy watching the wildlife. The value of my property is a concern. My next door neighbor can't move. She's elderly. My across the street neighbor can't move. He is locked in. It would be difficult for me to move. I don't want to move. I poured a ton of money into my house to revitalize it. And I don't think this corridor is a good idea at all. What concerns me most is y'all took this off of something that was going to be voted on citywide because you were afraid that entire project wouldn't pass, and then you turn around and backdoor it like that.
I want to be heard today.
Okay. We are going to have another meeting. I'm very, very sorry if you were missed. Before we do that, I want to make sure, Dave Rowley.
Show of hands.
I'm getting there, please. I'm getting there. So Dave Donaldson will be out here if you want to speak with Councilmember Donaldson. You had asked me, and I promised you that we would take a show of hands. If you are in favor of a study, would you please raise your hand? Okay. And if you are against a study, would you please raise your hand? Yes. And of course, I understand the whole project. And, okay, we got it. So thank you very much for coming. Yes, sir? Yeah, if you're from the east side of town, can you raise